next we have Isaac Getz. Isaac Getz was the author of Freedom Inc. way back in 2009, which has been translated into 15 languages. Since then, hundreds of companies and institutions have transformed their command and control organizations into freedom and responsibility-based ones. He was very much at the forefront of self-managed organizations, and he currently holds the post of professor at ESCP Business School. So, Isaac, are you there?
Yeah, it seems so.
Okay, over to you.
I'm trying to practice some British humor. So what I'm speaking from France. So I'll begin with a joke. An American diplomat says to a French diplomat, you know, we have invented this new approach and it's really great. It works in practice. Yes, says the French diplomat, but does it work in theory? Now, why did I tell you this joke? Because as academics, we always look for a theory, a model. I have personal research over the last more than 20 years, in fact, over 300 companies and organizations, and seeking this ideal organizational model, which liberates their people's initiative and potential. The bad news is I couldn't find a theory. And, you know, for someone coming from France, that hurts really, right? But the good news is that I did find a lot of practice that works. A lot of real companies that have really transformed themselves and have truly liberated their people's initiative and potential. And I call them liberated companies. You can find an article in Wikipedia, liberated company. All of these companies did it in different ways, but they all began their transformation with one common step, which is easy to say and very hard to do. So corporate liberation, we call it corporate liberation, can only begin when the chief executive lets go of her ego. Can be him too, right? And what does this mean? Let me share two cases from many, many leaders whom I have studied and who have successfully transformed their companies. Here's the first one. Bob Davids, the CEO of the Stradica Games, the award-leading electronic toy manufacturer at that time, traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and he was building its new factory in China. And one rainy day, Bob Davids walked by an open ditch where the sewer pipe was being laid with no slope. I don't know how much you know in building, but with no slope, nothing flows, right? So the sewage wouldn't flow, and Davids took off his shoes, jumped into the mud, and laid 2 sections of pipe, demonstrating the Chinese workers how to slope it. He then watched them correctly lay 2 more sections, and then he left. The Chinese managers, they were shocked. They have never seen a CEO jumping in mud together with workers, right? But that episode quickly spread throughout the whole company and turned Davids into a leader his Chinese employees trusted. My message is not that chief executive officers have got their feet muddy. My message is this. Next slide, please. Leadership is not a position assigned by your superiors, but a role granted by your people when they choose to follow it. Why is it important? Here's a story I love from a leading European auto parts and the first French liberated company that's called Favi, that I am studying and studied since the 2005. And that story happened in the 1980s, several years after they started their liberation. One late evening, Christine, she was a cleaning lady. She was cleaning her chief executive's office when the phone rang. It was around 8 p.m. The cleaner picked it up. The caller apologized for not warning about the late arrival. There was no mobile phones, and said that Favi, chief executive, was due to pick him up in the airport. And since there was nobody around, what Christine did, he took the keys to one of the company's cars, drove to the airport, Charles de Gaulle, in France, and brought the visitor to his hotel about, I don't know, maybe 1.5 hour or 2 hours drive from the airport. And she then came back late at night and finished her cleaning. She didn't tell anyone. She did what she thought is right. And it's great she did. The visitor was a quality auditor from Fiat, an Italian guy. And he was so impressed that he raised Favi's rating by 10%. I have a question for those of you who work in companies. Wouldn't you love to have people like Kristen in your company? But of course, in most companies, a night cleaner would not answer a call to the boss, have the keys to company cars available to her, or dare to leave without permission. In Favi, the boss is not the CEO. Push the button again, please. But the one facing a challenge, like Kristen, the night cleaner. Kristen surpassed herself, obviously, but she wasn't thanked for it. Taking great initiatives is expected in Favi, yet in most companies, the excessive ego of some, not only of CEO, but also other executives, other managers, prevents the self-surpassing of all. Therefore, it's for the CEO to start letting go of her ego if she seeks to unlock her people's potential. This worked with Favi, which operates as a liberated company, as I told you, since 1983. And some companies like W. Gore, most of you probably heard about it. Next slide, please. The manufacturer of Gore-Tex. And some companies, for example, like Quad Graphics, the world's second largest printing company in the United States, in Milwaukee, and have been liberated for even longer. So no liberated companies are not a fad. Sometimes in France, at least, it's considered to be a fad. It's not a fad that will be replaced by something new. It's perhaps the longest living organizational form and business philosophy, embodying McGregor's theory Y. You probably all heard about McGregor's theory Y. And liberating companies are not anarchists either. As Lord John Acton, now I'm coming home to Great Britain, said, there are lords only in Great Britain, right? You agree with me, right? So as Lord John Acton said already in the 19th century, next slide, please, liberty is not the power of doing what we like, but the right of being able to do what we ought, just like Kristen did in Favi. And the question is, can any company be liberated? Can you next slide, please? This is the question. And in fact, it's the wrong question. The right question is whether any company's leader can let go of her ego and become a liberating leader. I have personally never seen a successful corporate liberation without the leader's personal transformation. True, some CEOs I've studied didn't need to transform themselves. They didn't have an ego. They had maybe something like we call healthy ego, but not the inflated ego to begin with. Most CEOs, my experience, so they needed several months of executive coaching. And then a few needed a shrink. And it helped them a lot. You say shrink in UK or you say psychoanalyst?
Psychoanalyst, I think.
Okay, so psychoanalyst, okay? They needed a psychoanalyst. Once the leader transformed herself, she will naturally treat her people as adults. Next slide, please. In Latin, infants means a child not having the ability to speak. That's the meaning of infants in Latin. Because the bosses believe they are the most intelligent people in the organization, that's where ego is, right? They never ask for the employees' ideas, thus infantilizing them. Treat your employees like the adults they are. Give them the freedom they crave. Only then, together with your people, you will be able to co-create a new version of your company where people go because they want to, not because they have to. And where instead of doing their 9-to-5 thing, they do their absolute best to realize your company's vision. And I'm finishing. I know that Henry gave me only 9 minutes. So here's my message, right, Henry? 9 minutes?
Yeah, yeah.
So here's my message. Next slide, please. The true measure of leadership is in its redundancy. So, next slide, lose your ego and gain, next slide, engaged people. And that would lead to a thriving business and eventually make the world a better place. It's a very simple theory, in fact. I did find the theory. It's very simple, but it works in practice time and time again. I've seen it with my own eyes. And after all, that is the true test of any theory, right? How is it in English? The truth of a pudding is in the eating. Do you say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's the same for a theory. And if I come back to my diplomats, remember I opened with diplomats, right? So the French diplomat may be surprised to see so many liberated, thriving companies in France. Next slide, please. He would then promptly explain that it's normal for the country built on a theory. You know, we have a theory, liberté, égalité, fraternité. It's a theory, you know that, right?
Yeah.
To which the American counterpart would react, if it works there, it can work anywhere, and it does. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, this is the world map, right? You see it, these companies are everywhere. It's not my map, it's a wiki map. It's the people who work in this company that put their companies on this map. And I have a question to you because Henry said, ask them a question, otherwise they will sleep, right? Right, Henry?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the question to wake you up. So that's the question. Next slide, please. Who within the company do you think is best positioned to solve the problems they encounter? That's the question. Very simple question.
Okay, folks. Any questions for Isaac, either in the chat or in Slido or in the live session? Let's have some from the live session. Who's got some questions?
I was just saying that one of the pushbacks I get when we ask people to solve their problems is that junior colleagues will get really frustrated that they're bringing problems to a more senior colleague who then asks them to try and solve their own problem, which I get why we want to do that, because we want to empower them to feel like they can solve their problems. But how do we approach it in a way that doesn't really frustrate our junior colleagues and make them feel like we're asking them to do what they perceive to be our jobs?
Yeah, you asked me this question? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, I would say that the trust that if you take a little bit of time, you'll find the answer.
Okay.
That's what typical leaders do, right? But since you expect me to give you the answer, it's from my observations. I've observed about 100 liberated companies right now. It's a situation with I'd say the minority of people who are really infantilized, and they're extremely surprised when they're asked what do they think, and they're told by their leaders, like former managers, that I trust that you take a little bit of time, you find a solution. And the guy answers, you're paid 2 times more. I'm not paid to think. You're paid to think, right? And all kind of answers like that. So what do you do with these people? Obviously, it's a psychological issue. You can't push this thing, right? So you acknowledge that thing, and it's okay if you feel that way. Okay, please, continue as you continue, and probably you expect, me or some other manager to provide a solution, and you give it, right? You can't at that moment pressurize these people because they become stressed and so on. But later on, that's the job of the manager. The job of the manager that becomes a leader is one in these organizations, is really one, is to remove the things that block people from taking responsibility and assuming the freedom that is given to them. And that's not easy. So he has to do his own little psychological investigation, diagnosis, and so on and so on. That maybe this person, I don't know, maybe he was punished several times in the company by taking initiatives and they didn't work. So this guy doesn't believe anymore. He's afraid. Maybe this person is underpaid. Maybe this person has too much work, right? And he said, why should I take initiatives? I'm already crumbling. I'm on the level of being burnout, and now this guy asked me to take initiative. So there may be different reasons. If you don't understand what don't make the diagnosis, you can't bring really a solution or propose something in terms of the acting, right? And in creating the environment. So it takes time. The most important thing maybe to finish is that there are not good people and bad people in the company. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen. You are participating in this transformation, liberation, you're a good guy. And you are resisting, you're a bad guy. This is very, very big mistake, typical mistake of the understandable or very enthusiastic people that discover this mode of functioning because they're so enthusiastic and say, why don't you, accept it? Why don't you applaud? We're changing the world. We're bringing the happiest place in the universe. And you are like sour, right? Like you're not applauding, you're not happy. And you start to segregate the company. Never. Everyone, if he's doing his job, he's not stealing, he's not destroying the company, not burning down the plants, they are as good as others. And you acknowledge and respect that some people have more difficulty to leave this infantilized execution rights oriented position, the comfort zone, in fact, because it's very comfortable, right? Tell me what to do and I'll do it, into assuming responsibility and becoming an adult. Those of us who have children or had teenage children, it takes time, right? For them assuming the responsibility, it become autonomous adults. So you need a lot of understanding, no guilty complex, right? And no manipulation. And then some people may never come to that, but they are the minority. Let's say 10, 15%. It's okay, they're doing their job, okay? They're not very enthusiastic, they're not very energetic, they're not taking initiative, but you can advance with an organization where among I'm finishing, right? The boat of 8 people, the rowing boat, Cambridge, Oxford, you see the competition? If you see 6 guys, they're rowing very enthusiastically, and 2 guys, they're doing just correct 9-to-5 job, you can still win races. But it's only 2 guys are rowing energetically. That's Gallup. That's employee engagement level, right? 1 guy even out of 8. And there are 2 rowing backwards. Your boat is moving backwards. And that's what the average company's engagement and performance is. That's where we are today.
Okay. Over to Michelle. Over to Michelle.
Okay.
So my question was to throw the one back to you. You asked us. So who within the company is best positioned to solve the problem they encountered? I'm asking your question back to you.
We had this discussion in the breakout room, and in fact, I got the real good answers. In fact, frontline people. Why? Because these people have most of the information pertinent to the problem. And the real issue is, that's why I asked this question, it's like several several stratas, right? So that's the first strata. But the second strata is if they are the best positioned and they have the most of the information, and probably in many cases they have the solutions to the problems they encounter, can they act in most of the companies on their solutions and put them in place? And the answer is that Dave gave me, the answer is no. They don't have the right. They have to ask for permission because they have their boss and boss have its boss and so on and so on. And this is the problem of I don't have anything against traditional organizations in principle. I just think that these organizations stifle people and as a consequence, results. And the key is there. The people, I compare that the company is full of diamonds and rough, but they stay diamonds and rough because they cannot act. They're intelligent people. They know the solutions, but they just sit there and can't do anything because they have to ask the permission for a boss because they have need to these 3 signatures and things like that. And then they give up. And from engaged, in 2 weeks or 2 months, they become disengaged. That's how the disengaged group, Gallup survey, right, becomes extremely inflated. But it's not like that when you hire people. No company hires disengaged people or actively disengaged people. The company produces, it's a machine to produce disengagement. Perpetuum mobile, you know this term, right? They regularly produce disengaged and actively disengaged people. So that's a long answer to a short answer. That's, you know, we're in France, we like to speak long, you know. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, any more from the audience, from the live audience, Maureen?
I think we're good here, Henry.
We're good here. Okay, well, thank you very much, Isaac. Thank you very much for
Okay.
that. That was a great presentation.
Thank you. Henry, do you expect me to do it again or not?
No,
No, because you told me 2 times.
no, it's just the once, just the once.
Okay, I understood that if they applauded more, you would call me to do one more. It's like, you know, on the stage, right? We've got talent, but they didn't applaud a lot, right? So you are not asking me to do it again, the same song, right? That's the
Absolutely
idea.
not. No, not the
Okay.
same song.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't expect anything else from British people, you know, coming from France. Okay, I'm joking, of course. I'm poking a lot of fun at you, but have a very good day. And who knows, maybe in some other occasion. We meet a lot of times when Henry, sometimes in Korea, you know, Henry flies in on a helicopter, flies back to, and so on. Right, Henry?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.